All right, I'm here with Ryan Moore today. Ryan is an old friend of mine. We went to church together back in Indiana. You were a D1 coach in the town I was at, and now you're doing college advising for athletes. So wanted to bring him on today. I know a lot of you guys are in the thick of parents needing your help with getting their kids to college. And so Ryan's the expert, so I'm bringing him on today to talk about it.
Yeah, glad to be here. It's an honor to be down here and connect with you and see you again. And yeah, excited to share a little bit about what I've been doing with student athletes over the last years and the impact that we're trying to make in their lives for the better and for getting them placements and opportunities to compete in college.
So you talk about making an impact. You were a Division I college coach for all. Tell us a little bit about that, about your journey into coaching and kind of how you ended up where we're at now.
Sure. So I actually was a college athlete myself at Calvin University now, which is Calvin College, and was a track athlete there. Did 4 years, went to nationals my senior year, and when I left school, I thought for sure I was going to be done being a student athlete and would just move on to the real world. And God had some other plans for me. I was actually on a Coach USA bus going to a flight out to visit my fiance, who's now my wife, down in South Carolina. And I sat next to the athletic director's wife, and she was having trouble making a phone call home, and I loaned her my phone, and we got to talking, and her husband and I had very similar paths to getting to the point where we were now, and ultimately ended up volunteering my first 2 years at Valpo right out of college, and getting a master's degree at the school as well during that time in sports administration. And then the head coach decided that it was time for him to be done and move on after that. And I stuck around and put my name in the hat, and ultimately ended up taking over the program at 26 years old. I was probably the youngest Division I track and field coach in the country at the time. And that was in the spring of 2006, and then I spent 19 years continuing on with the program, and ultimately moved on from there, recognized that I was missing a lot of my own kids growing up, and wanted to spend some more time with them and with my family, and left and opened up on-track college advising after a short sprint with the American Cornhole Association, of all things, the director of strategic partnership there. But yeah, opened up on track because I still had a love for the students, and I really just wanted to have an opportunity to continue to minister to that age group of people. And obviously I love athletics, I love the student athlete and the time that I get to spend with them, and it was just doing it in a different way. I spent so much time recruiting students to me and having opportunity to connect with them while they were a part of my program, and now it was going to be about them and helping them figure out what that right path was to the next point where they would go and have their opportunity to compete themselves in college, and making sure they didn't make mistakes along the way. I saw a lot of that during my time at Valpo, where students would show up to a place and expect something totally different than what it actually was, move on and try some other school to think the grass is greener there and not find joy there either, and recognize that if they were doing it for the right reasons, that they were more likely to stay and be connected and enjoy the experience overall.
Yeah. It's interesting that you talk about kind of how you stumbled into this career in general. Like, this is sort of my story too. Like, I just went to be a teacher, and next thing you know, they're asking me, would you want to start an athletic department? And so I mentioned that because, you guys that are watching, like, involved in athletics, just keep an open mind to the opportunities that come across your table. Like, I don't think you were expecting to be a Division I track coach at 26, and then I wasn't expecting to be an AD at 22. And it's just kind of, we're both Christians, as the path God, opened the door for us with. And so that's pretty cool. I think you guys just keep an open mind. If you love sports, there's something out there for you in sports. And so now you've kind of transitioned, like you said, into the recruiting business and helping kids. And tell us a little bit about what On Track does specifically, kind of what your ideal client looks like, that kind of thing.
Sure. So On Track College Advising really works with student athletes across the board in various sports at the high school level. It doesn't have to be a Division I student. It's a student who's looking to continue their academic and athletic endeavors at the collegiate level. And so I work with them, helping them to figure out what's most important to them, what drives them, what things they really want to see and have available to them at the college level, flushing those things out and helping them understand where they're at athletically, and then really doing the legwork to help them figure out what schools are going to be great options for them. And so it's spending time and really figuring out on my own, hey, is this a good fit for the kid, and making some suggestions for them so that they understand, hey, there are some options for you. And ultimately, I always tell folks they don't need to rule anything out until they've gone through the whole process. And so there are great opportunities for those students across the board, and they just need to know where to look for them, and I'm there to help them. So I always say my goal is to eliminate the guesswork when it comes to the college recruitment.
And I love the way you're doing it, because you do the blueprint, which I'm going to have you talk about in a second, but this blueprint really, it really is very thorough. It helps kids see all the options, and part of this is a reality check. Sometimes, been doing this a long time, like a lot of parents see their kids in a different light than everybody else does, which is normal. We all do that with our own kids, but they don't always have the most realistic view. And I think what you're doing with the blueprint kind of helps give a more measurable picture of where this kid is at and where they need to look at. So tell us about the blueprint, because I think that's really what kind of sets you apart, makes it different.
Yeah, I mean, you're correct. I mean, I think any parent worth their salt thinks that their kid is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Yeah. But ultimately, that's not always the case when it comes to athletics. And there's varying levels of play that each kid will come across. And having someone that can be open and honest and truthful with them around where they fit and what level that they would be best suited to go and play at is an important piece of that. And so I developed this recruiting blueprint to help families go through that process of figuring that out, and then also just gives them an evaluation of where their student is based off of measurable input that they are able to share that is realistic. Like, you can find it on TFERS or huddle accounts, those verifiable statistics that are out there that the student has actually achieved, and then takes that along with their academic and the financial fit from the families, and marries those together and looks expansively across the country at the 5,300 schools that are out there, and narrows down to a short list of 15 schools that they would really be suited for in all of those worlds. And so not only does it give them the list of schools, it gives them some rationale for why they should be looking at them, so they get an understanding of, hey, this is a real option for me, and understanding why. And then it goes a step further and really helps them get a foot in the door, so to speak, with some different templates that they can use to have conversation with coaches or make that initial outreach to them and try and get some response. Ultimately, I think so many students make the mistake of sending their stats or what they can do out to a coach and expecting a coach to be wowed and just respond right away, and that's not always the case. I mean, coaches get hundreds of emails every day, and so you got to stand out. So I always tell them they have to give some actionable item that they need, something that's a call to action that they can get info back from the coach to encourage that conversation to start to happen. And these templates help with that. And then on top of that, gives them a timeline for everything that they need to be doing at the high school level, preparing for, going to college or having that offer from a coach, and making sure that they're, checking all the boxes as far as that goes as well.
Yeah, and I think that's huge. I think it can be a little eye-opening to kids when they actually see where they really stand. And it's difficult because you grow up and you're in kind of a bubble, and if you're good, that's all you really know. And I'll tell you, I love Midwestern basketball. I love Midwestern athletics. But when I came down to South Florida, I realized the level of athlete is different everywhere. Mm-hmm. There was kids down here that were unbelievable athletes. I hadn't seen kids like that in Indiana. Doesn't mean those kids in Indiana can't play. It just means there's a whole world out there that all these people are competing for those same scholarships. Yeah. And so I think to realize that it's bigger than just Division I. There's, like you said, 5,300 schools. Like, just have an open mind to where you really fit the best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I think figuring that out early, I think is critical. I mean, so many coaches even now will blow smoke, and tell a kid and their family that they're, the greatest athlete that they've ever coached, and they may not be, suitable at the Division I level, and that's okay. I mean, I think there are great opportunities at D1, D2, and D3, and NAIA, to be honest, and JUCO. You just got to know the right place.
Yep.
And so, having a tool that can help narrow those things down and make that selection process a lot easier for you is paramount.
And for some of these kids, it's going to be a multi-step process. Like I coached a kid who ended up at Olivet Nazarene, played basketball, ended up being an All-American, transferred to Valpo, played Division I basketball, ended up at Towson playing Division I. So it's like his path was not the Division I or bust at the beginning. And I would say he would tell you he had the greatest experience because he got to be the big man on campus at Olivet and was very good, got to play some Division I basketball. Yeah. So it didn't work out probably how he had it in his mind as a junior in high school, but I think it worked out great for him in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, it's a different world we're living in right now, too. I mean, you touched there briefly on the transfer portal and, like, all of those things.
Yeah, tell us about this new landscape, because this landscape's crazy now with 5 years and NIL and transfer portal.
Yeah, I've said that the NCAA has really been the wild, wild west over the last couple of years, and you're starting to see some things be put in place to help narrow that field down and make it more level for everyone. I think the 5-year deal that is happening right now is really designed to, I think, one, make it a little easier on the compliance offices so that they don't have to track so much of everything that's going on. If you know your window is from your 19th birthday, moving forward, you get that 5-year deal. That's for everybody. There are a few exceptions in there, like a mission or something like that, or a military service. But you get that 5-year window to complete that eligibility, and that's it. And
so what's that going to do for high school kids now? If with this 5 years, how is that changing what you're doing, advising high school juniors and seniors?
Well, before we even get there, I think the transfer portal has played a huge impact as well. And I mean, the guy that you had that was at Olivet who ended up going to Valpo and then Towson, like, that is an experience that a lot of kids are having right now because of the transfer portal. It's more difficult to get those guaranteed roster spots at those top levels. And so kids are looking at the D2 and the D3 and NAIA as feeder systems. And even other schools that are Division I that may not be that Power 4 or the Group of 4, they're looking at students and saying, okay, well, we're fine to go recruit them and we'll bring them here and we'll keep them for a year or two, recognizing we're going to lose them to these premier, elite level programs. And they're becoming okay with it. They said, hey, we'll know what we'll do in the short time that we have with you, and we're willing to do that. I think Calipari kind of did that, and so it was a one and done, and most of those guys were off to the NBA. But as far as the 5-year with the high school student, I was just having a conversation the other day with a parent who's asking me, what I thought of it, and I think I shared with you there. I think it just helps the compliance office, and he said, well, what about families that will just plan to keep their kids back till they're 19 and then send them on from there? And honestly, I said some might do that, but his perspective was that the whole landscape was going to change, and I don't see that happening. You may have some families that will do that might be, over the moon about athletics or think that their kids have opportunities to play at that ultimate level, at the pro level. But I think that, I think it's really just setting a precedent for keeping them from 19 to, till that 5th year. And the reality is there too, it's to keep the safety thing too. Like, I think you have older guys that were playing at the collegiate level, 25, 26-year-old guys are very different than an 18-year-old kid or a 17-year-old kid that might come out of high school and, go up against them. I mean, it's you grow and you mature during that time significantly. And so I think they're trying to limit injury too, to be fair.
Yeah, and of course a lot of that's driven by football. Football drives much of this conversation. But yeah, so I think the 5-year, what I see happening with all of this is it's just forcing high school kids to have to look down a level than what they thought they were going to be at, which of course your Division I kids are still going to get recruited at the Division I level. But to me, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's helping people to open their eyes to opportunities they may not have been willing to consider before. How has NIL changed that at all? Or do you see that just really more for the top end kids?
I mean, I will say I had, in my time at Valpo, I had a student who sought after some NIL money, at local places, and I think it's different than the collectives that happen at the Division I level at the top end. But he was working with some corporate partnerships, but spent a lot of time just cutting videos and doing those different things, and I don't know that it was really worth it for him in the end. Division II, that's the type of experience that those kids are going to have. They're not going to get the collectives. So they're actually out doing some work, for a car dealership in the community, and they might get some money from that for an appearance that they make or something like that. But I mean, largely, I don't know that it's going to make that big a difference to trickle down as far as you might think.
Sure.
I will say though, I mean, Division III, as far as opportunities goes, that's the biggest of the divisions. So there's more opportunities for student athletes to compete at the Division III level than all the other ones.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
So.
Yeah, and as you alluded to earlier, if you are good enough and you play at that D2, D3 level, you're going to get seen. You're going to get your opportunity at some point down the road at the D1 if that's really what you want. But if you don't get the playing time, if you don't get the opportunity, you're never going to be seen anyway. So, we're strongly recommending our kids look at every option, see what the best fit for them at the moment is. So,
yeah.
let's talk practical kind of rapid fire here. Tell us first, high school athletic directors, the guys that are watching this, what can a high school athletic director do right now that will help their kids in this process?
Honestly, I think it's hiring quality coaches that are willing to put their neck on the line for the kid, speak out on their behalf, and try and connect them with as many coaches as they can. Be willing to do the emails, be willing to make the phone calls to get their kid out there to those coaches. I think that's a huge piece of it. So hiring individuals that really care about those students.
And you guys have heard me say that. I think the job of an AD ultimately is managing coaches, not actually managing athletes. We like to think of it as managing teams and athletes, but really it's those coaches have the most influence of anybody. So I think that's a great thing to focus on. All right, what about the coaches? What would you say to a high school coach who's like, I really want to get my kids seen? What's one or two things they can do right now that would help them?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's opportunities for coaches to go and attend some clinics and learn from some of those coaches that are already competing at the collegiate level to sit in and watch, or opportunities for them to, volunteer even on a staff if they can get in and have those experiences with those collegiate programs to get understanding of what the expectations are. And if that doesn't, work for them, they need to really be actively engaging with those coaches, trying to build that Rolodex so that they have a list of schools that they can reach out to and know and have connected with. I think I see that with some of the coaches that my students or my own kids attend. They've got a list of coaches that they're connecting with that they'll bring in and try and showcase those kids through camps that they host. I think that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
I know the basketball program at the school where my son is at, they run summer league, and they have all sorts of schools from all across Indiana and the Chicagoland area, and it draws coaches in to watch. So it's giving them the opportunity to get in the door as well, and then it gives you the opportunity to turn around and get to know who they are.
Okay, so let's talk about, this is where I see as an athletic director, talk about seniors who are maybe talented but have not really put in the legwork at this point, and then decide, hey, I really think I might want to play at college. What can those guys do right now in July before their senior year that might get them an opportunity?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that a senior could do right now is get themselves out there and be seen by coaches. That's through email, through phone calls, through showing up at camps. At the same time, don't waste money at camps that seem to be, just there to pull money from them, but ones that are actually going to be recommended by some specific coaches. But you've got to be consistent in your communication. I think the biggest piece of that is, getting emails out, sharing the information, being bold in the heading that you're giving, sharing as much information about yourself and where your stats are early on. I think the average coach is going to look at an email for maybe 30 seconds, and if they're not getting that information that grabs them right there in their face on the front end, they're not going to stick around very long. And just consistency in that. If they don't hear from a coach right away, don't give up or assume they're not interested. I mean, they get a lot of emails all the time.
Yeah.
And so just turning around and continuing to connect with them and try and build that relationship as much as you can, because I think that that's ultimately in the end what they're doing is trying to create a relationship and get to know, is this person going to come in and help my team and help my cause and the culture that we have here, or are they going to hurt it? And that's built through relationship and through time and energy together.
Yeah. And you'll have some of those kids. We had a kid who started playing football as a junior, figured out he liked it, he's pretty good. Senior year, he got an offer from Murray State, but our coaches really hustled to get him that. So, I mean, it is possible, and you're going to run across kids like that, and they're going to come to the AD or the coach, and they're going to want all of this work that should have been done years ago to be done now. And so those are some good ideas. What about the flip side of it? You have freshmen, you have parents who are just gung-ho right off the bat, like, what do I do? You can't always tell, but sometimes you can identify early on a kid who's pretty good and may have a chance. What would you tell a freshman family? What should they start thinking about?
Yeah, I would say that there's a big difference between a freshman student and a senior student, and there's a lot of time to grow within there. Others are going to catch up, and others are going to fall behind. And so the student that you have right now may not be that same kid that you have as a senior. But it doesn't mean that you can't be preparing for those opportunities that are going to come down the road here. And so, really starting to sit down, and I always talk about defining non-negotiables. I mean, I think that's a huge piece of it for families, is to get their kid to verbalize what they're wanting out of an education and what they're looking for and what they feel like they need in order to be successful at that next level. And they might not know that right now, and that's okay, but starting those conversations early and being realistic about them is an important piece. Just stay focused on the grades. That's the single biggest thing I can share with you guys right now is, if you're not academically in the right place, then you're going to have a lot of offers and a lot of opportunities go by the wayside, because you're going to college because you want the education. And that old adage from the NCAA is that not all those students are going to go pro.
Yes.
They're going to go pro in something else in the real world, and that's why you're there, is to get that education. And so focus on that now. Don't dig yourself a hole.
Well, and it's so important because when they think of Division I or just college athletics, they think of full ride scholarships, which even at the Division I level, those are relatively few and far between. Every sport is not football. Some sports are dividing up 10, 13 scholarships. Mm-hmm. So that the grades are really crucial, because the rest of that money is being paid for by them earning academic scholarship or whatever. And if you haven't done that and you get a quarter scholarship, that Division I dream may not become a reality because you can't afford it. And so I love what you said about, the non-negotiables about the academic side, like knowing what kind of school you really want, because your skills may not translate to Division I level, but those things should translate. There should be the kind of school you want at every level. Yeah,
absolutely. And, I would tell you as well, I think families need to be realistic about the financial side of things as well. Parents should have the conversation with their students, like, look, this is what we're willing to pay or allow you to take on in loans. It's one of the biggest things conversationally that I have with our students, is helping them understand that, use teaching as an example. This isn't to pick on teachers, but like, teachers are very underpaid coming out of college. So your first year teacher may make $35,000 a year. Well, if they leave with $200,000 in debt, how long is that going to take them in order to pay off? And so they need to think through that. Is it worth doing that, pursuing that there at a school that costs $100,000 a year, and you're willing to pay 50 or whatever that might be, to leave with all that debt, where you may want to consider going to a different school where you're going to get the same degree, on paper, as far as, being able to be recruited or brought on, as a position somewhere, with way less debt. Yeah.
So going back to the scholarships for a second, just to kind of give a reality check. So you were at Valpo, Missouri Valley Conference, solid mid-major conference. You're coaching track. How many members were there on the track team, roughly?
So we averaged around 85 student athletes on our men's and women's teams combined.
And so how many scholarships did you have to divide among those 85?
I had 1.25 scholarships between both programs.
Right. So that's where, like, people look at it and go, oh, I can go run Division I track, but they're thinking of it again in football or basketball terms, like I'm a scholarship athlete, and that may not really be the reality.
The majority of our teams are made up of student athletes that are not getting aid on the athletic side of things, and so there are some programs that, do fund things a little bit differently, but across the board, it's not fully funded by, each sport, by each school.
Yeah, I would think Valpo's reality is closer to reality for most schools than, say, LSU track.
Sure.
Or whatever. Like, of course, those very top end schools probably are playing on a different financial playing field, but that's the reality for a lot. And it's not just track. Baseball's got divided scholarship, all kinds of sports. So that's where I think the fit of the school becomes so much more important, because now you're talking about, you may actually get more money at a D2 or an NAI, just depending on how it all falls out compared to a D1.
Yeah, I mean, the academic aid and the gift aid from the universities can actually encompass greatly what you can get on the athletic side of things. And so, or eclipse that, very quickly.
Yeah.
It's not the norm. I think 2% of all college student athletes will get a full ride scholarship somewhere.
Yeah.
And there's, a ton of kids that are competing at each level every year.
All right, so Coach, we could talk so much more about recruiting, and I'm sure we will. We'll sure have you back on. Tell people where they can find you if they want to use the service or just want to start to see your content.
Sure. You can find me at ontrackcollegeadvising.com. The recruiting blueprint we have available at recruitingblueprint.app. And I'm also on Instagram at ontrackcollegeadvising. So I try to share as much as I can with the families there about things that are happening, keep it interesting. I've got a podcast that I do called The Coach's Corner, where I'm interviewing different coaches across the country, similar style to this, where we, sit down and talk recruiting and what coaches are looking for and what they're, after, and just have a good time.
Yeah, and you guys are going to want to check that out. He's got coaches from Baylor and Ohio State and Princeton, coaches from all over the country, some really high-level programs, and some great guys, too. Some guys that I know as well that are just really know their stuff, and we'll give you guys some really great tools. We're going to collaborate on this post, too, so you can just go right up to the top and click on Track College Advising and check out Ryan's stuff, and have them come in, talk to your kids or whatever. You're open to, I know, all kinds of ideas here as you get this thing rolling. So, so thanks for coming on. We'll talk again soon.
Sounds great.